Good evening and welcome. My name is Ellen Brown. I'm going to be your host tonight, taking you through our aviation information evening. So tonight on the call, we've got about 500 individuals registered to find out more about everything that is aviation. So a big warm thank you for joining us. But before we dig into the jam-packed agenda, and I promise you it is jam-packed, I just wanted to take a moment to stop, pause, and acknowledge the Bedigal, Gadigal, Ngunnawal, Dharawal, and Eora peoples. These are the traditional custodians of the land for the UNSW campuses that we stand on here today, including our Bankstown Airport that you may so well be lucky enough to experience in the future. I'd also like to pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal or Indigenous individuals that might be present with us here on tonight's webinar. Now, I mentioned we have a jam-packed agenda. This is what we have in store for you tonight. So I'm going to be running us through an overview of UNSW and why each and every one of you might want to consider joining us here at UNSW. We're then going to hand over to our treasure trove of experts, people that live and breathe aviation. They're going to help us explore these programs that you're so interested in. That includes Brett Molesworth, who's our head of School of Aviation. It includes Malcolm Good, our Director of Flight Operations, and Graham Doig, our Program Lead for the Bachelor of Aviation, our drone program. We've also brought in a current student, so someone that has not only been doing the program, but has been exactly where you are today. So Frank is going to lead a conversation around what it means to be a current student here at UNSW and be in an aviation program. Lastly, we're going to wrap the evening with a bit of a Q&A and a panel discussion. Now, for everyone on the call here, you'll see that down the bottom of your panel, you'll see a Q&A function. So in that panel discussion, we're going to take a combination of the questions that you've pre-lodged when you've registered to attend this webinar, and we're also going to go through your Q&A questions that you're asking us live, and we're going to do our best to cover off all of them together. So why UNSW? Each and every one of you have so much possibility right in front of you. You could literally do anything and probably study anywhere. There's four key reasons I think UNSW really trumps above other options. The first reason is our top 20 global status in terms of rankings. Now, what a top 20 university does for you is it's really about upon graduation, how much weight does that resume come with? How much brand recognition do your qualifications come for? And how many doors does it open? So the fact that UNSW is ranked 19th in the world certainly goes a long way. The second reason would be that we are the #1 Australian university attended by startup founders. Now, why that's relevant, especially to an audience interested in aviation, is because aviation is such a growing industry. So many of our graduates end up starting their own businesses. And so being in an environment that encourages innovation and entrepreneurship is obviously really, really beneficial. The third reason is our graduates have been ranked most employable. And that's not just once, that's actually 5 years running. So AFR, which if any of you haven't heard of that publication, is a major newspaper, and they have rated us as producing the most employable graduates from 2020 all the way to 2025 inclusive. So it's really just saying that not only do we have all these lovely accolades, but our graduates are really going into the world and doing something impressive and really shaking up who we produce for tomorrow. And last but not least, we are the only Geo8 university to offer aviation. So when those really combine, it means that UNSW is really the go-to place to study aviation. If that didn't sell you, a lot of you are from the call tonight, about half of you are from overseas. So there's a good chance you might not have actually seen the campus. I'm hoping this probably does the trick. This is a flyover of our UNSW Kensington campus. Now, there's a couple things to call out that I find particularly unique. One is way in the distance, you're going to see that ocean. So UNSW is uniquely positioned, incredibly close proximity to some of the best beaches in Sydney. So our campus means you can literally be a stone's throw and just walk down to Coogee Beach if you want to. And also, it's just a really short public transport trip into the CBD hub. So really having the best of both worlds. So for students that come to study an aviation program, you'll be balancing between our Kensington campus and for some of the offerings, also spending time out at our Bankstown airport. So we'll dig into that as we go through. Now, we're going to go one level down and we're going to talk about studying here at Aviation UNSW. So I'd like to introduce Professor Brett Molesworth, who's our head of school at the School of Aviation.
Thank you, Ellen, and welcome to everyone. I'm pleased you could join us today to learn more about our school at UNSW Aviation and what we offer. Ellen provided a comprehensive overview of UNSW, but I'd like to talk about UNSW Aviation and, importantly, what we're trying to achieve. We take our position as the highest ranked global university that offers a degree in aviation management and flight training seriously. Importantly, we pride ourselves on academic excellence. For students in our flying program, that extends to training. We are all about creating and developing leaders of the aviation industry, and that doesn't differ between flight training or management. As an illustration of that position, we hold our own air operator certificate, which means we conduct all our flight training in-house. Importantly, that allows us to control standards. We also hold a Part 142, which means that the Civil Aviation Authority has designated us capable of delivering an integrated flight training course. We're just one of a handful of organisations throughout Australia that are able to do that. We're 30 years young. Over that period, we've developed significant industry connections. All our academics have industry experience, and we also draw upon our network of aviation professionals in that industry to deliver some of our courses. So you'll be taught by leading academics and leading professionals within the aviation field per se. I mentioned before about our school holding an air operator certificate, and it allows us to control standards. We have various aircraft, and we've listed a few of those at the last dot point. So we have a new fleet of Diamond DA40s, where we've got 6 new aircraft. 2 have arrived and 4 are on their way. Plus we have some existing Diamond DA40s. We have various simulators. There's a Boeing 737 simulator, a FRASCA simulator, and we even have a Dash 8 procedural simulator. If we were to go to the next slide, please. On this slide, you'll see 4 images. The bottom 2 images depict our vibrant campus. The top left image shows a drone operator, and Dr. Doig will talk about our new drone program later on. But this just shows you the breadth of our abilities and the education and training offerings we have. On the top right-hand side, you can see 3 pilots, thank you, and you've got our Diamond DA40 in the background. So that's one of a number of our aircraft that we operate. On the next slide, please, you'll see more information about our aircraft. On the left, you've got the Diamond DA40s. Beneath that, you've got our Piper Seminoles, and we've got an older aircraft, a Cessna 182. On the right, there is just some of our flight simulators that we operate. Importantly, we pride ourselves on conducting high-quality flight training, but also research. And we use these facilities, these aircraft, these simulators, to discover new knowledge, of which we feed back both into education and flight training. If you look at our website, you'll see that we proudly state that we conduct research that educators around the world, that's worldwide, rely on to shape the next generation of pilots and aviation managers. The final slide, if we go to the next slide, please. The final slide depicts the 3 streams or the programs that we offer. I'm going to now hand over to Mr. Malcolm Good. He's the Director of Flight Operations, and he'll provide you information about our Bachelor of Aviation flying. Thank you, Malcolm.
Oh, hi everyone, and thanks, Brett. Welcome. I'm here to talk to you about flying in general and also flying at UNSW. Brett mentioned our 6 new DA40, so in a moment we're going to just show you what they look like, and then I'll come back after that and just talk to you about the program, why you would do your flying training at a university like us, and give you some details about English and admissions. Fantastic. And I took the second of the DA40s on its maiden flight the other week, and I really appreciated the chance to just get in the sky and fly around because I never normally do that. Normally it's with one of our fantastic students. So why a university? Look, if you were my age and you were desperate to be an airline captain, I'd probably tell you to go get your commercial license and go get a job. But most of the people who are considering university have time, and you should use that time to set yourself up in the best way possible to achieve success in your career. And we say that's coming to a university. I'll get to the flying training in a minute, but a really important attribute of a pilot and a leader of the aviation industry is critical thinking. And you don't always get that from flying training alone. And that's one of the reasons we say a degree in aviation is really, really important to set yourself up for a leadership position as the years go on. And many, many pilots, including our graduates, don't just fly at the airline. They take other roles at the same time: fleet manager, safety, quality, finance, all sorts of different areas of the airline that you can become involved in, as well as continue your flying. If you come and learn to fly with us, I think you'll be better when you finish than you would be if you learn to fly anywhere else. And that's because we have things that set us apart. Firstly, we have dedicated theory instructors who are experts in individual subjects they teach. And I'm talking about flying theory subjects now, like navigation, flight planning, meteorology, human factors. All of them are ex-airline pilots. And there's no self-study with the theory like you might get at other places. All of the theory is structured in the early theory for your private license, your commercial theory, and your air transport pilot license. Obviously, you'll get a commercial license with us and an instrument rating, and those are the two qualifications that are necessary to work as a professional pilot. But you'll do them with instructors who care about you and not just getting into an airline themselves. And that makes a huge difference. All the instructors work for us, and they're very standardized. We use airline procedures, airline style checklists, QRHs, which is a quick reference handbook. We do an MCC course. MCC is multi-crew cooperation at the end of your degree, and that turns you from a really competent single pilot being able to operate the aeroplane by yourself, and it gives you the skill and the knowledge to operate as part of a crew, which is what you'll do for most of your career. So 160 hours in the DA40 to get your commercial license. You'll fly all over New South Wales, which is the state Bankstown Airport's in, and even as far as Brisbane and Melbourne. We won't send you there when there's a tropical cyclone bearing down on the place, and I hope they're all okay up there. You'll do your last 40 hours in the Piper Seminole, which is the multi-engine aeroplane, and that's where we'll teach you how to fly in all sorts of bad weather. Not as bad as a cyclone though, but inside cloud and at night. And that, along with the MCC, really puts the icing on the cake for you to become a professional pilot. We have mentorship program with the Qantas Pilot Union. They're called APA, Australian International Pilots Association, and you'll be paired one-on-one with a current Qantas pilot during your third year, and they'll mentor you and help you transition from being a student to a working pilot. We also have QACE, which is a Qantas Aviation Career Enrichment Scheme. And what that means is they will give you several presentations and other exercises in second year. And then when you graduate, you'll be given a special pathway into Qantas recruiting for several of the group airlines like QantasLink or Network Aviation. That's about as much of an overview as I can give you in the time we have. I'll just quickly show you now that there are some English language entry requirements, and I don't propose to go through all of these, but English is the international language of aviation. And what's on the screen there is repeated on the university's English language requirements webpage, so you can see more detail there. And the admissions pathway starts on our website, and it involves a application form. So in a moment, we'll see that on the screen. And if you're a domestic student, apply via UAC in the normal way. International student, apply directly to UNSW on the webpage. Both of those things will lead you to an internal application form. And when you submit that to us, we'll contact you immediately to acknowledge receipt of that form. And then at some point, depending on whether you're a domestic or an international student, we will arrange an interview. International students will tend to do really quickly. Domestic students, we wait until after your Year 12 exams are finished, so usually around mid-November. Step 4, if you're in Australia, you should think about a Class 1 aviation medical certificate. That's the medical certificate you need to work as a pilot. I'll be back later on, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions I'm sure you have then. But right now I'd like to hand over to Dr. Graham Doig, who is the lead for our drone operations program. And look, if you're interested in aviation and operating a complex machine and you're not sure you want to sit in the cockpit for 16 hours over the Pacific, I'd strongly recommend listening to what Graham has to say. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much, Mal. That's a good lead-in for me. So Graham here. I'm leading the new drone program at the School of Aviation, and my background is in engineering, but I've spent many years working on electric aircraft and drone technologies. And the first and most important thing to say is that when we use the word drone here at UNSW, we're not talking about what most people are talking about when they think of drones. This is not a degree to teach you how to fly a little DJI drone around. You don't need a degree for that. This is a degree in drone operations and management to prepare you to run the drone airlines of the future. So here's a Cessna Caravan modified by a company over in California, where I spent the last 10 years, flying an end-to-end cargo delivery mission with no pilot on board. The person in charge of this flight that you saw there, she is literally hundreds of kilometers away from the plane, and the AI on board the aircraft is talking to air traffic control in natural language that other people in airspace can hear. So this is the future that you want to be ready for, where crewed and uncrewed aviation starts to mix together. Here's another company called Pika, who have large cargo drones delivering essential supplies between islands, connecting communities where it's traditionally been too expensive to fly a traditional aircraft. We're going to see more and more of this in the coming years. Here's a company called Rotor who have an autonomous helicopter that is able to fly and spray crops on farms, which is traditionally one of the most dangerous jobs for a human pilot to fly. It's a solar-powered drone from Airbus that's flown continuously for a month and a half without landing at 60,000 feet and can provide constant internet service to people who've been cut off in a natural disaster. And finally, here's NASA's drone on Mars. So drones are already helping us explore other planets. So the potential of this industry to transform how we live, how we understand the world, and how we help people is just incredible. So this company, Zipline, flew 500,000 flights last year in Africa. They saved thousands of lives by delivering units of blood to hospitals. But think about what it takes to be able to do that. The entire system of people and logistics that's needed, it actually makes them one of the world's busiest airlines. So our degree at UNSW is about how to prepare you for being a leader in these kinds of incredible operations that weren't even possible just a few years ago. So there's a few features about the degree that make it really unique, I think, not just in Australia, but worldwide. So if we see on the next slide, we have 40 hours of practical experience in the program. So as well as training where you get your remote pilot's license, if you didn't already have one, you'll be doing more advanced stuff like flying fixed wing, multi-rotor drones up to 50 kilos, doing night operations, doing long range autonomous operations beyond visual line of sight. In addition, you also get 20 hours of real world missions with Surf Lifesaving. So they run 40,000 flights a year, and that could be you working on shark patrol, search and rescue. You'll be working alongside these professionals on things like flight planning, equipment and maintenance, people management, how they work with air traffic control and the regulator, basically how they run their whole business inside out. You'll get to see that. We also have courses that focus on entrepreneurship. So Ellen mentioned that UNSW is Australia's #1 uni for startups. And we see new technologies and new applications for drones appearing almost every day. You'll get to work on real world projects alongside those companies that are already changing this industry. And we can even help you start your own business straight out of uni. In fact, we've already seen several startups out of UNSW raise millions of dollars to make their mark in the drone industry in the last few years. Next time, it could be you. In the degree, we also cover some of the main applications of drones. So you do get that hands-on experience with remote sensing and data analysis, and that does make up a lot of the industry right now. You'll also get the chance to work on some of the projects we have at the uni, such as the drone you see there on the right or behind me in my picture here. That's a drone that's being built right now that can fly cargo up to 700 kilometers to reach regional and remote towns around Australia or Southeast Asia. So students from our program are going to be doing record-breaking flights on that project later this year. And as a department, we have really good connections into companies and organizations that are already doing drone operations all over Australia. You can gain work experience and contacts with them throughout your degree so that you can walk straight into a job when you graduate. So look, just to sum it up on the next slide, this is really far from just learning how to fly drones. I'll say it again, that you do fly drones, but this is a degree that prepares you to run major drone operations straight out of university. We have the entrepreneurship focus. We have practical training and projects in the classroom that comes straight from industry partners. And we'll be getting you ready for the future of large-scale drone operations that share the same airspace as crewed aircraft. So this is your moment to get ready for the future of aviation with the drone program at UNSW. And this is pretty new, so you definitely want to go visit our website, find out more about that. And if you want to apply, it's the exact same process noted before when Mal was talking about the crew program, but just a slightly different medical, because your flight training will be a little bit different. You're not necessarily going to go down that path to become a commercial pilot. And please check back during the year, because you'll also start to see other options and pathways into the drone program coming up in UNSW for 2026. That's my sales pitch for the drone program. I'd love to hand over now to Brett, who's going to talk about the aviation management degree.
Thank you, Graham. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about aviation management. Our program, one of the most popular programs within our school. And Malcolm spoke about becoming a pilot and that's sitting in the front seats, the front of an aircraft. Graham spoke about then flying drones, but more importantly, understanding what goes on behind the scenes and then providing those skills, those attributes to go out into the industry and create new jobs, entrepreneurship in other words. The aviation management program looks at everything behind the scenes of pilot flying an aircraft or an airline per se. And so there are many professions behind the scenes. We've got flight operators, we've got dispatchers, we've got safety, people that investigate incidents, and they create systems, safety management systems to ensure safe operations. We've got economics, finance, law. These are all components or professions behind the scenes. They make flight possible. They make airlines possible. And so this program, the Bachelor of Aviation Management per se, focuses on that. It equips students with the knowledge, the skills, the attributes, the leadership, the critical thinking that allows that to happen. So our program, the Bachelor of Aviation Management, is a 3-year program. There are 3 intakes, so there's 3 different semesters throughout the year. And importantly, it's face-to-face. It's delivered, as I mentioned before, by our professionals, both academics within the school, as well as those individuals within industry. And we've just listed a few of the organisations those professionals come from. And as you'll see, they are quite leading organisations. Qantas, for example, Air Services, Civil Aviation Safety Authority, the ATSB, our investigative body, and so on. The program is about creating leaders of tomorrow, and that's that critical thinking skills with the domain-specific knowledge required to lead in this industry. Importantly, we have 3 specialisations. One's in human factors and safety, one's in data analytics, and the third is in law and sustainability. On the next slide, we've got our dual degree, which is a Bachelor of Aviation Commerce and Management. This slide is for those that would like to specialise in commerce, finance, economics. It's for those that are rather good at maths. It's a 4-year degree and hence the dual degree, Commerce and Aviation Management per se. So professions, airline finance, we've got leasing. There are a number of different specializations within the aviation industry where this degree, this dual degree, these skills acquired from this degree are well suited to individuals. So again, there was 3 intakes, T1, T2 and T3, and it's delivered face-to-face per se. If we go to the next slide depicts the various pathways you can obtain entry into UNSW aviation per se. The most common, from my understanding, would be the very bottom one, which is through our Bachelor of Aviation per se. Though if you do have some aviation experience, you may be able to enter it in the graduate diploma level, and if you do have a degree, you may be able to enter through our master's program. So we have an entire suite of programs, depending on the various aviation qualifications you have, to permit entry into. Once you've completed your bachelor's degree, there is opportunities for you to complete further education, and that's a master's, or if you'd like, you could complete a PhD. So we offer a whole suite of programs to ensure that we educate the leaders of tomorrow, both at an undergraduate level and a postgraduate level per se. The next slide, thank you. I do have to put on my glasses at this point, I'm sorry. The next slide provides some pictorial representations of the industry per se and illustrates the growth within the industry. There are various leading bodies, ICAO, which is a UN member body. You've got IATA, which is an organization that provides services throughout the entire world, Boeing, Airbus. Such companies are repeatedly highlighting the need for professionals within this area. You'll note on that slide, it talks about Boeing saying that in the next couple of years, they need 612 new pilots, 612,000 new pilots, 626,000 new technicians, 886,000 new cabin crew. And don't forget all the people behind the scenes. United Airlines for the last year and a bit have been employing 70 pilots a month. So let me repeat that. Over the last year, United Airlines, one of the 3 largest airlines in the United States, have been employing 70 pilots over the last couple of years. Aircraft production can't keep up with demand. So we have this industry that is expanding exponentially. And Graham spoke about drones, which is also expanding exponentially. So there's never been a better time to get into aviation per se, if you look at it from that perspective and the employability perspective. If we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. In this slide, you'll see our 3 main programs, and keep in mind again that centre program, Bachelor of Aviation Management. We had that dual degree, which is the 4th year degree if you want to specialise in finance, economics and so forth. We've just listed a few of the typical careers students move into completing our programs per se. So I'm not going to read through those. I'll let you look at those in your own time. If we move to the next slide, please. This is just a list of some of our industry partners. Malcolm mentioned before APA, AIPA, which is a pilots association. You've got AFAP, again, another pilots association. Surf Lifesaving, Graham mentioned with drones, Surf Lifesaving. On the right of that, you've got AVI Assist. Obviously, the largest airline in Australia, we've got Qantas, we've got Cathay Pacific. Last year, Cathay Pacific took 2 of our students, our management students, on a work integrated learning program. Cirium provides us data about the aviation industry that our students use in real time to forecast airline operations, to utilise to create a hypothetical airline to see how well that would succeed within certain parts of the world. So we have all these partners per se that we use, utilise, draw upon and associate with to benefit our students per se. If we could go to the next slide, please. I want to introduce 2 of our alumni, and there are many alumni. We have over thousands of alumni, but we're just going to highlight 2 before we pass off to a current student. So Shea Garcia, he's a ex-UNSW aviation pilot out at our FOU, Flight Operations Unit, and he's now working as a first officer for QantasLink. And he's got his quote up there, some of the best times he had and the friends that he's developed have been flying out at our Flight Operations Unit at Bankstown Airport. And the next slide contains an image of Robin Thompson. She completed our Bachelor of Aviation Management program and she's moved into Sydney Airport. And again, she reflects positively on the program and the association she's built with students, but the education, the high standards that we strive for, that has helped her get into quite senior positions at such a young age with at Sydney Airport per se. So thank you. The next slide moves off and I'd like to introduce Frank. Frank Pragadon. Frank is a current UNSW Aviation Management student. He's the treasurer of our Aviation Society. And that's really important. Our students bond together and they create various networks. And this Aviation Society helps and promotes the school and builds upon student experience. So Frank, I've spoken enough. Over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Brett. I was just actually having a read of all the questions you guys had in the Q&A section. And a lot of the questions that are left unanswered will actually be answered in this section. So we'll just quickly flip to the next slide and we'll show you a short video of what you can expect as a UNSW Aviation Management student. So you would have heard Brett mention earlier that a couple of us students were actually part of a program with Cathay Pacific that allowed us to go to Hong Kong to visit the head office and do an internship there. I was actually lucky enough to be one of those few students that were selected to be part of that program. And at UNSW, we call that the Work Integrated Learning Experience. You'll see on the slide there, we just abbreviate it to WIL. But essentially, what you'll be doing as a student is you'll have a lot of exposure to the variety of industry partners that Brett has mentioned earlier. And there are opportunities to conduct internships throughout your degree that count for course credit. So, for example, with my internship at Cathay Pacific, I was placed in the customer and commercial team, and I was rotated across the finance, marketing, corporate, and trade. And then I was also in the lifestyle and loyalty team. So I got exposure to pretty much everything that you'd learn in the aviation management degree. And it was a great way to really apply my skills and understand how aviation actually functions in the real world. So, as part of this Cathay Pacific internship, it actually went over 6 months. So at UNSW, that's around 2 terms. But there are a variety of internship placements that could run just over the summer term, which is around 4 to 6 weeks, or just 1 term, which is around 10 weeks. So you do have that flexibility to choose an internship program that sort of accommodates to your schedule. On top of the Cathay Pacific program, I also did a placement with Tourism Australia as part of the SIFE 3000 course, and that's called the Industry Group Project course, and that's actually administered by the Faculty of Science, where they get partner organizations with different business problems, and you essentially act as consultants to help them improve their sort of operations or anything that their particular business issue is related to. So the project that I worked on in Tourism Australia was actually analyzing the amount of inbound traffic coming into Australia. And in doing that, we were able to focus our findings to help them improve their marketing campaigns. So we developed a Power BI dashboard. We used our knowledge from our aviation marketing course. And then at the end, we were actually able to produce really good recommendations that they actually ended up in implementing in their next marketing campaign. And that's why you'll see a lot of marketing towards Korea, China, Japan in Tourism Australia. So even though as a student, it may not seem that you can't contribute a lot, but as you can see, just from these work integrated learning experiences, there's a lot of things that you can do to get stuck into the industry and hopefully secure a job post-graduation. But apart from the professional side of things, on the next slide, you'll see what Brett was talking about a bit earlier. So this is UNSW Aviation Society, and we'll play that short video on the screen there. So UNSW Aviation Society is a constituent society of the School of Aviation. So we're affiliated with the School of Aviation, and we essentially cover all the aviation degrees from flying to management to drone. But we don't just limit ourselves to that. We welcome anyone with an interest in aviation. So if you have friends who aren't necessarily partaking in an aviation degree, they are more than welcome to join, network, and meet new people. So just from that short video, you would have noticed what we call our O Week. And O Week is essentially our orientation week, and UNSW is renowned for having the biggest O Week in the Southern Hemisphere. And AVSOC every year runs a stall to meet and greet new students and sort of help them settle in to university life. To support your transition as a first-year student, we also run a peer mentoring program. And that's essentially where you're matched up with students who are sort of in the higher years. So you're looking at people in second, third, or even fourth year who's doing the same degree as you. And you can sort of ask them pretty much all the dumb questions that you think you might have. Where is my class? How do I navigate to the food court? Where is the nearest toilet? They're always there to support you, and it's a non-judgment free zone. And that is open to all first-year students. On top of that, you'll see on the far left corner, within the first 3 weeks of term, we also run an AVSOC Games Night. And this is a really good way to help you meet new friends and, of course, share some common experiences. I know for me as a first year, I really struggled trying to get around uni, and it was always a huge talking point about where our classes would be. So it's a really good way to meet people with like-minded interests as you. And in the middle, you'll see we have ASAP. And ASAP is a really important program. It stands for the Aviation International Study Abroad Program. And you can see last year in 2024, we went to Tokyo. So me and a group of 20 other students went to Tokyo, and we had the opportunity to network with Japan airline executives. We got to visit their hangar, we got to visit their head office. We also even got to see behind the scenes of Haneda Airport and how they run things there. So aviation society is not all just about socializing with new friends, although that is quite an important part as well. We'd like to provide opportunities for our students to go beyond just the domestic airline industry and get exposure internationally. And this is a program that we run every year. The year prior, in 2023, we went to Tokyo and Dubai. And in 2022, they went to Singapore. So it's quite a long-running program, and we are still yet to release the destination for this year. So stay tuned on our Instagram channel. And last but not least, a lot of you have been asking about internships or work placements, or how can I get a job after uni? Well, the best way I would recommend is to network using the UNSW Aviation Society Careers Expo, which usually happens midway throughout the year. And that is where essentially you get to meet all the industry partners that we have, from Cathay Pacific to Singapore Airlines to Sydney Airport to the Australian Border Force to Tourism Australia. Every facet of aviation is covered, and that's a way where you can ask all your burning questions. And for me personally, it was a great way for me to network with those in the industry. And that was a way for me to sort of figure out where I wanted to go. If I wanted to go into finance as an aviation management student, or did I want to go into marketing? And that can really help clarify all your sort of distresses that you have as a student. So I'll now move on to the next slide, which is our panel discussion. So we know that you all have a lot of questions, and we're all very eager to answer them. So I'll throw it back to Ellen.
Absolutely. Now, Frank, don't go anywhere, because to your point, the Q&A has been going hot while we have been talking with the various speakers. I think we've received over 150 questions as each of you have had your respective discussions going. And in addition to that, we've received a treasure trove of questions that were received when individuals registered for the program. So a lot of those end up being focused on the student experience, or some of them are program specific. So as you've been talking, I've planned to dig out the hardest, most challenging questions we can throw to each of the specialists here on the call to help our students just in understanding where to next. So the first question I'm going to throw to you, Brett. You've sort of talked about the Bachelor of Aviation Management, which is terrific. We understand it's one of our most popular programs, but there's individuals on the call that want to know about the industry academics that have actually been teaching on the program. So who do we have teaching on that?
Ellen, that's a great question, because I mentioned that we have academics, but they're full-time academics that focus on teaching excellence as well as research. I also mentioned we've got those industry professionals. So let me just provide an example, or three examples, to illustrate the quality and the depth of knowledge that these industries professionals bring. We've got Dr. Kevin McMurtry. Kevin is an ex-UNSW PhD student. He works for CASA, and he's a flight safety inspector. Kevin has over 30 years experience in total, and he delivers courses such as safety management systems. So this is how an airline needs to manage safety through a system of systems per se. So that's just one example. Within the airport area, and a gentleman that delivers our airport operations management course, it's Greg Hay. Greg Hay is the general manager at Sydney Airport, so general manager of operations at Sydney Airport. Greg has over 12 years experience within airport operations per se, and prior to that he was an air traffic control officer with the Royal Australian Air Force. The third example is a different organisation per se, and we have various courses, as I mentioned. One's in the area of security. The gentleman that delivers this course in security is the head of security at Qantas. Now, Trevor has over 20 years experience in this field. And as you know, Qantas is the largest airline in Australia, and he heads up and leads aviation security. So there's just 3 examples of some of the professionals that we have within our program.
Amazing. It's always great to hear when you've got sort of academics that are actually teaching, you know, not just lots of book smarts, but that lived experience, people that have been in the industry a long time. They just bring so much knowledge to the classroom. Okay, Malcolm, I'll give you a hard one now. We've had quite a few individuals that are, well, some of them were contemplating a Bachelor of Aviation Flying, some are contemplating the drone program. Both of those share a common element, and that is the interview that's required to gain entry. Are there any tips, any tricks that you might want to tell the audience about? There seems to be a bit of nerves around that interview.
Yeah, thanks, Ellen. If you want to work in an airline or be a professional pilot, get used to interviews because you'll do several before each new job you start. Some of them are group interviews, which are absolute torture. Ours isn't, it's one-on-one. And as Graham was talking about the drone program, I was actually sitting here thinking, well, if I didn't love flying aeroplanes, I'd probably chuck it in and go do that program. But I do love flying aeroplanes, and that's the main part of the interview, is to find out what your motivation is. So if you want to do well in the interview, I'd suggest that you have a really good think about what it is you're trying to achieve. If you love flying aeroplanes, say so. If you're not sure whether you love flying aeroplanes yet, say so. But tell us what it is that is motivating you to spend 3 years of your life in this program. And it's not easy. It's a lot of early mornings, it's a lot of hard work, and some self-discipline required to succeed. So that's really what we're there to find out, is do you possess those skills, in addition to some others that I'll mention, that will set you up and give you a really good chance of completing the program. So I'll just give you an example. You're on a 14-hour flight and the aeroplane burns 12 tons of fuel an hour. Now, a good pilot needs to know that that's about 168 tons of fuel for the flight, so that if the computer that's working all of this out has had bad data put into it, you'll be able to detect that error before it becomes a problem. So mental arithmetic is really important, and we'll ask you some questions just like that one. Motor skills. If you're a domestic student, or if you are in a location where it's possible for you to get a driver license before you start university or before you do your interview, then I strongly recommend that you do that. The skills you learn in driving a car are almost directly transferable into flying the aeroplane. It's controlling a machine in the environment. Yeah, sure, it doesn't go up and down, but many of the skills are directly transferable. If you're somewhere maybe like Hong Kong, where I believe you can't get a license until you're 18, and hopefully by the time you're 18, you might be here already. We recognise that, but we'd still want you to be able to demonstrate somehow that in your life you've had some practice and you're good at things that require hand, eye, and foot coordination. So sport, playing a musical instrument, anything that requires physical manipulation of some object or demonstrates some judgment of moving in the environment around you. All the other ones, teamwork, planning, independence. A lot of people who talk to me about the interview after they've done it, once they're a student here, they all say it wasn't what I expected. It's not like any interview I've ever done. And the reason for that is because it's very practical. All right, we'll ask you for examples, and we're really trying to hone in on the skills that we think are important for flying. Situation awareness is a big one, how you perceive the world around you and what sort of detail you notice. So that's the first step of situational awareness, actually, is your perception of the environment, and then making decisions and projecting into the future. So look, that's an overview. I wouldn't be too worried if you're an aviation nut, if you know anything about airlines, aeroplanes, airports, regulators, safety investigations, you'll be fine in the interview. If you don't know anything about aviation, you might want to have a think about why you want to do it, and do some reading. So yeah, that's an overview. And look, I know we're running out of time, but I've seen some really good questions. So I'm just going to say that yes, you do get a 2D and a 3D instrument rating. You don't have to unfreeze your ATPL before you work for Qantas or another airline. You should look at airline websites to see their minimum entry requirements. Singapore Airlines is 200 hours, Cathay 250. If you don't have those hours, by the time you finish, you can do an elective with us so you can get them. CASA Medical, check the CASA website. That's the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, and you do it with a doctor, not us. If you do have asthma, I saw one person, you really need to talk about that with your DAME. That's the aviation doctor you'll go to get your medical. There are medical standards, and the best thing you can do if you have a medical problem is find out from the DAME, the aviation doctor, how that will affect you before you start spending time and money. Anyway, thanks, Ellen. I won't hog the panel anymore.
No problem. The next question is directed at Graham. People are asking, about the drone program, the fact that it's been only launched last year, but people seem to think that you don't need a degree to fly a drone. Could you talk to us a little bit about what sort of career opportunities might be available for graduates? Because I think there's a little bit of still a misunderstanding about that program and the outcomes that you might gain.
Sure. And I'll stress again, we're not creating a degree program to help you fly a drone. You absolutely don't need that. And there are good paying jobs for drone pilots, but we all know that autonomy is becoming more and more of a thing. This degree is preparing you for the kind of jobs that lean more into the operations and the management side of things. So rather than being the remote pilot, you might be the chief remote pilot who's in charge of all the operations across an organization, or you might be in charge of all flight operations for a company doing things at large scale. You might be working in the government, helping them develop these new regulations to deal with these new technologies. So it's really about pitching you in at a slightly higher level than being a drone pilot, although we do equip you with the qualifications to go out and do that. So there's definitely no problem choosing that path either. We're really making a kind of fully rounded professional here that allows you to slot into all different areas of this industry, because it touches so many different parts of so many different sectors of industry.
Terrific. And now, Frank, I've got one for you about the student experience. I think people are feeling a little bit hot under the collar for all the options that everyone's been talking about. How did you choose the Bachelor of Aviation Management? How did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Ellen. And as you can see from the past few minutes that we've been talking about, there's so many options that you can take. And the reason I chose aviation management is because aviation has just had a very prevalent aspect in my life. Being a first generation Australian, you have a lot of memories with planes. And I didn't see myself as someone who wanted to fly them. I saw myself as someone who would manage them instead. So aviation management is quite a broad degree, as you can tell, with what Dr. Brett Molesworth has said. There's a lot of opportunities to go into ground handling, crew operations. You can even go behind the scenes into the IOC. And I chose aviation management for that flexibility. I can sort of dabble in different career paths and see what I really want. Because I know as students, it is quite difficult to select a career path and say, I want to commit to this for the rest of my life. And I feel like the aviation management degree is quite versatile in that sense, that you're not locked into one particular thing. And like all the other panel speakers have been saying, aviation is always evolving, and aviation management is definitely a degree that can help you sort of go with the times. Aviation management changes as well. You've got laws and regulations that are always coming up and are new, and the courses that they teach you are always updated with these new laws and regulations. You've got new strategies, and these courses will teach you that. So aviation management was just very well rounded, and that's why I ended up choosing aviation management as my degree.
Terrific. Thank you, Frank. Brett, we've probably got time for 2 more questions, so I might flick the second last one to you. One of the people on the call are wondering how the new Western Sydney Airport might affect operations at Bankstown.
Okay, I can partly answer that, and Malcolm Good may jump in if I miss something. For us, it won't really impact our operations per se, because our flight training is based on hours, and when the students are in the air, they're flying to the training area, and they'll obtain greater or more experience in controlled airspace. As a commercial pilot, this is the airspace that you fly in all the time. So in actual fact, it will provide greater breadth of commercial airspace experience in this case, and transiting to and from Bankstown Airport to the flight training area. And it's in the flight training area that we practice specific activities per se, or flight maneuvers.
Okay, and last question of the evening, Graham, how do you think AI will affect the aviation industry?
Well, AI is obviously a very hot topic right now. It's showing up in a lot of different areas. I would say to people on the call, certainly don't be worried that that it will somehow replace pilots, as in human pilots. That's not happening in our lifetime, and passenger aircraft operations are on a growth, trajectory. But where we do see AI coming in, you will interact with this as soon as you step out of university. When you think about some of the incidents we've seen coming out of the US in the last few weeks, there's a lot of talk about how AI could have improved support with air traffic control, maybe avoided a fatal incident, or helped provide better weather prediction for severe weather that caused that Delta Airlines plane to flip over. We'll see AI is kind of co-pilot in safety checklists and other things. So there's a lot of different very positive applications where AI supports human aviation, as well as allowing us to have crewed and uncrewed aviation operate in the same airspace safely. So I think it's a really exciting time to see this new technology coming through. And I think it really lifts all aspects of the industry with some really useful and also unexpected applications.
I couldn't agree more. I think in some ways you're probably leaving the audience with more questions than they walked in with, because now the biggest question is going to be, which one do I pick, because they all sound so interesting. With that, we might close out this evening. We have so thankful to the panel of specialists that we've had involved in tonight's call, and obviously all the prospective students that have joined us here tonight. We'd love to stay connected with each and every one of you. In the coming days, you'll receive a copy of this webinar recording, and also future information around, key dates, events that we're running, and closing dates to make sure that you're keeping on top of as a future student of UNSW. We wish you all the best for your future studies, and we're really so hopeful that we'll see you one day here on campus with us all. So with that, good night and thank you so much.